For a special report of WDSU as we follow breaking news, Congressman Steve Scalise shot at a congressional baseball practice in Alexandria, Virginia.
Yeah, he is one of at least 5 people injured. The gunman who was also shot has since died from his injuries. Scalise is said to be okay. He was shot in the hip. He just underwent surgery at Med Park Washington Hospital and is in stable condition, but 2 other people are said to be critical. Now, the gunman has been identified as James Hodgkinson. Police are currently scouring his home in Illinois. And we're learning that he reportedly volunteered on the Bernie Sanders campaign.
And we want to get straight to the latest information. Aix Diaz is standing by at Simpson Park where that shooting took place.
Randy, Charles, this is the baseball field where Majority Whip Steve Scalise was shot in the hip, and witnesses say the gunman carrying a rifle was hiding behind the third base dugout when he opened fire, hitting 2 Capitol Police officers, at least 1 congressional staffer, and Scalise, who was on second base.
Our units responded and were on scene within 3 minutes. The officers received fire from a suspect, and they returned fire, and that part of the investigation is ongoing as we speak.
Officers say the gunman was taken into custody, was transferred to a hospital, and he has since died. A government official has identified that suspected shooter as an Illinois man named James T. Hodgkinson, and police believe this was an isolated incident, but they're still investigating the motive. The FBI has now taken over the lead in this investigation with the help of local police. And this morning here at this field, the Republican baseball team was practicing for tomorrow's congressional baseball game. That's an annual bipartisan tradition in Washington. Again, only Republican lawmakers were here this morning when this shooting happened. Live in Alexandria, Aix Diaz, WDSU News.
And that baseball game still set to go on as planned. Also, Governor John Bel Edwards here in Louisiana just led lawmakers in a prayer for Steve Scalise in the state capitol rotunda. This is a look at a photo sent out by the governor showing our state leaders embarking in a moment of silence. He also issued this statement that says this appears to be an outrageous, cowardly attack on one of our own. Donna, his wife, and I are praying for Scalise, his family, and all injured. While details continue to unfold, I want to thank the Capitol Police, all first responders, and other members of Congress for their quick and heroic efforts. And we will have more reaction from lawmakers across the state and country in just a moment, but this shooting has prompted New Orleans Mayor Mitch Landrieu to postpone his scheduled State of the City address in New Orleans.
Yeah, instead, he focused on Scalise's shooting and what happened this morning in Virginia. Aubrey Killian was at that press conference and joins us now with Mayor Landrieu's remarks. Aubrey?
That's exactly right. Good afternoon. Mayor Landrieu described this entire situation as shocking and actually canceled the State of City address because of this. So take a look. That news conference did just wrap up shortly, not that long ago. The mayor described Scalise as our congressman and a strong fighter. Now, he touched on how his family spends time with the Scalise family during Mardi Gras. He is asking the public to keep them in their prayers. The mayor also just spoke with Congressman Cedric Richmond by phone. Richmond and his son were also there during that shooting. They are okay. Now, he has put a call into Scalise's wife. He has not been able to reach her. That's as he says she is traveling to D.C. And I asked the mayor, will there be tighter security for lawmakers here in Louisiana following that shooting?
We will all take necessary security precautions, but again, it goes, out to the public. This is a dangerous job, and we're in a difficult time in this country, and this is not a partisan issue. I mean, any attack on any elected official, anybody that works for the government, because you're upset with the other side, is an attack on our entire country.
So a new date for that State of City address has not been scheduled, but the mayor really just touched on and focused on this afternoon that everyone is definitely needing some prayers for the Scalise family. Reporting live at City Hall, I'm Aubrey Killian, WDSU News.
Aubrey, thanks. And as Aubrey just mentioned, Congressman Cedric Richmond has visited with Scalise at the hospital.
Yeah, and he actually got off the phone with Kelly Brown just a few moments ago before actually going back to meet with lawmakers. Kelly.
That's right, guys. Cedric Richmond, Congressman Cedric Richmond, represents District 2 here in Louisiana. He was actually in D.C. at the time of the shooting, also practicing at a separate field for Thursday's game. Now, he and the Majority House Whip go way back after serving together in the Louisiana House of Representatives. Here's what he had to say.
What can you tell us about Steve Scalise's condition, and have you talked to his family?
He's in serious condition. His family is on their way up here to D.C. To be with them. We know that he was hit in the hip and believe he was the first person shot. And then his security detail was able to respond and keep the casualties lower than they would have been if they would have not been there.
Now, you are planning to attend tomorrow's game. Do you think that the game should still go on? And if it does, are you still going to attend or play in it?
It's a game Steve and I look forward to playing in every year. It's a good chance to come together for charity and raise money for the Boys and Girls Clubs and some other charities. And I don't know is the short answer.
Okay.
But the game is scheduled to go on tomorrow.
Now, you were also practicing at a separate field when Congressman Scalise was shot. What happened, or how did you guys hear, and what did you guys do when you heard about the shooting?
Well, Capitol Police came up and ushered us off the field and in the dugout and said that there was an active shooter at the Republican practice and they wanted to protect us in an abundance of caution. So they made us shelter in place for a while until more police cars could come and make sure we could safely exit.
Now, are you concerned at all about security? I know this has been a concern of yours before. Is it more so now? Do you feel like more needs to be done?
Oh, a lot more has to be done. And I met with the speaker last week to talk about member security. And I think that we will move forward in addressing it. But the members of Congress are 535 people who can send this country to war, and who vote on the budget, and who usher in this democracy. So it's important.
Should this be classified as a terrorist attack, in your opinion?
I let the FBI do all that and figure out the motivation and then determine the rest.
And tell me, kind of describe what's happening in D.C. now. For the viewers here and the voters here, you're kind of the eyes and ears for us up there.
Well, today it's about security. I think we're going to go on and have hearings later today and go about our business and still be responsible for running the government of the United States. But Steve and our security and the staff that were injured are certainly in our thoughts and prayers.
Again, Louisiana Congressman Cedric Richmond there. Now, according to multiple members of Congress, tomorrow's congressional baseball game will go on as planned. Live from the studio, Kelly Brown, WDSU News.
Thank you, Kelly. And when not at the nation's capital, Scalise resides in Jefferson Parish. Officials there released this statement saying, in part, on behalf of Jefferson Parish residents who are so well represented by this tremendous leader, our thoughts and prayers are with him and those injured in the tragic incident in Virginia. And WDSU's Kelsey Davis picks up our team coverage from Old Jefferson, where she has been speaking with neighbors of the congressman. Kelsey.
That's right, Charles. We're live in Old Jefferson. You can see here, we're choosing not to name the street that the congressman lives on, but his street, as you can see, is blocked off. We're seeing lots of police presence in this area. And as Patrick pans around, you can see there's even more state police over here. And there's been some activity at his home. We're not really sure what's going on. We really can't get much closer than this, so can't really get over there to ask many questions. But we did try to speak to neighbors. The ones we did get a chance to talk to did not want to go on camera. Earlier this morning, though, we were able to go to a coffee shop in Lakeview. As people had breakfast and drank coffee, they were watching updates on what was happening in D.C. regarding House Majority Whip Steve Scalise's condition after he was shot in Alexandria at that baseball field. Two people did comment to us about the shooting, and while they don't share political views, they both say the current political climate needs to change and change fast.
I just think he's brought in a wave of hatred, and I hope things change for us.
You know, we have this schism in our world and also in our country, which we really need to break the trend. You know, never mind who I'm for, but nobody should be against somebody else to go out and get a gun and shoot them.
Again, that's people commenting this morning at a coffee shop in Lakeview on Congressman Steve Scalise being shot earlier this morning. Again, we are live in Old Jefferson, where the congressman and his family live. You can see here the road he lives on is blocked off. Lots of police presence in this area, and has been this way for several hours now. We've been told to keep to one side of the street, away from the actual home. Again, that we're not showing or naming the street that he lives on. But again, this is the scene here in Old Jefferson. Reporting live, Kelsey Davis, WDSU News.
And Kelsey, messages of a speedy recovery have been flooding in across social media.
Yeah, WDSU anchor Gina Swanson joined us live in the studio with some of those tweets. Gina.
Absolutely, Charles. Randy, no matter what your politics, when something like this happens, everybody comes together and pretty much admits it's all a tragedy. We've been monitoring social media reaction, as well as reaction from elected officials and other leaders. First of all, President Trump tweeted out this morning, quote, Representative Scalise of Louisiana, a true friend and patriot, was badly injured but will fully recover. Our thoughts and prayers are with him. While Vice President Mike Pence said, quote, Karen, his wife, and I are praying for Steve Scalise, the Capitol Police, and all hurt for a speedy recovery. Our hearts are with them and their families. More tweets pouring in here locally. This one from New Orleans Saints and Pelicans owner Tom Benson, reading, on behalf of Tom and Gail Benson and the entire Saints and Pelicans organizations, our thoughts and prayers are with Representative Scalise and his family at this time. And Jefferson Parish President Mike Guinea also took to Twitter, posting to a colleague, a co-worker, and national leader for Jefferson Parish, I'm praying for you and AIDS. I wish a speedy recovery, and my heart are with you and the families involved. Of course, we're going to continue to monitor all of this reaction on Twitter and social media and comments into our newsroom, and we'll have more for you in just a few moments. Charles.
Thank you, Gina. Well, Congressman Scalise is among 6 people injured in today's shooting. Here's a breakdown of those injuries. 2 congressional staffers, one of whom has been identified as Texas Representative's aide Zach Barth. Another person injured has been reportedly identified as Tyson's food worker Matt Micah. 2 Capitol police officers were also reportedly hurt, and the gunman, again identified as James T. Hodgkinson from Illinois, was also reportedly hit after exchanging gunfire with Capitol Police and has died. Well, many leaders are crediting the presence of Capitol Police and the security detail with Congressman Scalise for preventing what many are calling a massacre.
And joining us live here in the studio, our security expert Mike Kahn. And Mike, just kind of with the way of events, the way that the shooter targeted his shots, it makes you kind of believe that he was targeting one specific person before opening fire.
The way it was described as having one very loud shot, then a pause, then multiple shots after, would appear that perhaps he was getting someone lined up in his sights, not necessarily who, and then continued with a barrage of gunfire after that, aggressing the individuals.
And Mike, I mean, the fact that there's only 5 injured people in this event, and the Capitol Police officers, speak to their training a little bit. So obviously they train for situations like this, but we're talking 13 members of Congress on the field at one time.
Sure, they run a protective detail for Scalise, so they're trained to do everything they can to get him out of situations, whether it be driving, executive protection, or anything like that. So they were out there making sure he was safe, and as soon as the threat started, they addressed the threat, and they continued to work until they neutralized it. Had they not been there, this individual could have continued to ingress on the other people and killing everyone out there. So they did an amazing job.
Well, you've also heard, if it wasn't for Scalise being out there, Representative Mo Brooks, one of the people who actually said this would have been a massacre if Steve Scalise wasn't out there. So does this maybe beg the question of, if you have all of these congressional members in one place at one time, there should be more security?
I would absolutely think that if you have this many people in one outside location, you would have had some roving patrols, you'd have had some people walking around there, if nothing else, just to stop other people from just walking up and seeing what's going on. But absolutely, the inevitable is a possibility of death or injury. So yes, there should have been other people.
And the situation was contained fairly quickly. What's next in the investigation?
So the next thing they do is they immediately go, they find out who the shooter is, they go to his house. As soon as they get there, they start looking through all their stuff. They start seizing evidence. If he has a vehicle, they'll seize the vehicle also. They're looking for any other rhetoric or any other political views that may have made him do this. Interviewing neighbors, interviewing friends, everything around it becomes a complete FBI investigation at this point, sped up about 300 miles an hour, and probably will be almost finished within 48 hours.
Are you surprised that it hasn't been wrapped up even more quickly? I mean, we're already 5 hours in, and you still see a very active scene, both at the shooter's home in Illinois and also there in Virginia.
Well, it's a methodical process, and they want to make sure they do everything properly, even though the shooter's deceased. They want to find out if there's anyone else linked to him, if anyone else knew about this, if anyone else knew about his intentions of going out there, if there are any group affiliations. So they want to really tear it down piece by piece, find out everything about him and his life, his family, and then they can move forward with the investigation.
And you talk about this being a premeditated, targeted attack, and the descriptions of 50 dozens of shots. Talk about some of the weapons used.
So it appears that he had a .223 or .556 long gun, as well as a handgun. And with that, that's the first round and the multiple rounds going off. You know, when everything's going on, you can listen to eyewitnesses, but you also have auditory exclusion that takes place. So everything they're hearing, they don't hear things just as they are. Like you hear one loud shot, then the rest are muffled. That's these people's auditory exclusion taking over, protecting their body, and you don't hear all the same stuff. So you really have to go back and look at the eyewitness accounts, the shell casings on the scene, and go through everything. But it appeared that he exhausted the ammunition that was loaded in the rifle and went to the handgun.
Security expert Mike Hahn, thank you so much for joining us here live, giving us your insight. Also, Scalise is at the Virginia ballpark this morning practicing, as we told you, for tomorrow's big congressional baseball game. Some in the area may recall Scalise actually playing baseball for Rummel High School at one point in time. Scalise graduated from the Catholic High School in Metairie back in 1983. And
WDSU's Jennifer Crockett spoke with Rummel's principal and joins us live now. Jennifer.
Well, Charles, Representative Scalise is still a big part of the Rummel alumni here, even during past congressional baseball games. And as you said, Randy, Steve Scalise was a Rummel Raider baseball player whenever he attended school here back in the 80s, and he even dressed out for a past congressional charity game in full Rummel gear. The school's principal, Mark Milano, told me Scalise fills the halls every time he comes back to visit, the most recent trip just last month when he judged the Rummel crawfish boil.
Larger than life. He's just a very charismatic person, very caring, always willing to stop and listen to somebody and will help anybody he can.
The alumni here is already starting to talk about ways to support Representative Scalise and his family, as well as the others injured. They're starting with prayer. Coming up at 5 in just a few minutes in the show, we're going to hear that principal's initial reaction when he heard someone from his own school was one among the victims in Virginia, and also words from the Archbishop Gregory Amen. That's coming up in just a few minutes. Live in Metairie, I'm Jennifer Crockett, WDSU News.
Jennifer, thank you. Now let's turn to WDSU's Juliana Mazza, who picks up team coverage from Metairie.
A word that Congressman Scalise is going to be okay, expected to be okay, is welcome news for people here in Metairie, those who voted him into office, even those who didn't. We are continuing to follow developments out in Washington, D.C. As that happens, people here in Metairie are certainly reacting. We've been speaking with some people here in Metairie just to get a sense of the emotions that they're going through after the news broke that Congressman Scalise was shot. So far, the people that we've talked to, both Republicans and Democrats, said they're just relieved to hear that he is expected to be okay.
It should never resort to violence. Everyone's entitled to their opinions and their different views, and that's just the way everything should be. I think that the people who are going to continue to do this, unfortunately. I think it's up to us to be more protective.
Alabama Representative Mo Brooks was on that baseball field. He said he heard the gunshots and then heard Congressman Scalise scream from second base. He ran over to try and help, used a tourniquet to stop the bleeding. Again, just to reiterate, Congressman Scalise is expected to be okay. For now, live in Metairie, Juliana Mazza, WDSU News.